Hi, this is Jeff, and this is the second half of my interview with co-founder and artistic director of Black and Brown Theater, Emilio Rodriguez. In this half, we talk about how to wear many hats in show business, what diversity really means, and Emilio's real-world dream for the future, as well as much, much more, so stay tuned.
From like 3 to 7, I'm going to wear my producer hat and get all of these things done. From 11 to 2, I'm going to be teaching a class, therefore I'm an educator, forget everything that needs to be done producer-wise. What I mean by diverse is not that we're getting rid of white people and only having people of color. I think it's that we're sharing the space equitably, meaning that the ones who are getting gigs are always working on their craft.
So it sounds like you've really taken your role as an educator and as an educator in theater to heart, even in everything that you do. What about shows for adults? What kind of shows for adults have you done?
So we are just now rehearsing or we're not rehearsing. We just did the audition for Swimming While Drowning, which is our play at Matrix.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually wrote that. I'm so not a self-promoter.
Well, you're on the right venue for self-promotion, so go ahead. Go for it.
So I'd actually, when they had reached out to us about doing a collaboration, I had suggested so many other things that we could do. But then they said, well, we heard that you have this play that's going around, and we heard it's done in Texas and Portland and some other places. So we want to read it, and then they read it, and they said, let's do this one. So yeah, it's about LGBT homelessness.
Okay.
And it's very simple setup, which is why I think a lot of theater companies love it. It's just in the shelter is the only location. And it's 2 characters, so that's also great for theater companies that are paying actors, because less actors today. So and then it's just sort of like a poetic journey of character study of like their time in the shelter and what it means to be a human that affects someone. And what it means to like have the need for humanity. And now as I'm explaining it, I'm like, oh wow, this will be really great when we come back from whatever is going on now.
Well, it seems like a really timely play that you accidentally wrote.
I wasn't thinking about this virus at all, but now, it's because the play is really talking so much about intimacy and the need for that, and how hard it is for some people to explore it, but yet how much people need it. And I think now more than ever, people are really aware of how much they need it, even if they didn't realize it before. So when you take those things away from people, that's when they're really aware of like, oh wow, I am someone who needs to socialize. I am someone who like craves physical contact.
Oh yeah, I'm lucky because I'm trapped in the house with my family, and we like each other. So so I'm very fortunate in that regard. There are a lot of people who are less fortunate and either are alone or don't like their family. So that can be pretty tough too, right?
Right. Yeah. It's definitely been hard for me. Going before this virus, I was like, I can't wait to live alone. Like, roommates are so hard to deal with. You always have to work each other's schedule around. And so I thought it was like the best thing ever when I finally got to live alone. Like 2 years ago, I think I started that. And I did for 2 years. Love it. Right now, I do not.
Oh yeah.
This is a weird, especially now that like bars are closed and restaurants are closed. It's like.
Yeah, and as a theater person, this is murder.
Yeah. And theaters are not open. And nobody's rehearsing. And,
or auditioning, or any of that stuff. So keep positive out there, people.
Yes.
So let's talk more about your database and more about you as an educator. So educate me as a theater artistic director or director on how to use your database, because I did use your database actually earlier last year.
Oh, sweet.
With a show that I was adapting and producing with a friend of mine named Frederick Glazier, who wrote this epic poem.
Yes.
And we were looking, and we were staging, and we knew it was going to be avant-garde, and we were trying to adapt it, and we knew that because it had, really a multicultural cast of thousands, but we could only afford like 3 or 4 actors to play thousands of people. So we were like, well, we should have multicultural and it really didn't matter to us. But I remember calling you and you were like, what kind of person of color are you looking for?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. So I think it's and I don't remember Crystal, Breon, and Mike.
Yeah.
We're all cast from that, and they're people who work very regularly as the database, and they always they're wonderful.
And
They always
they're
shout us out.
wonderful.
Yes, and they're wonderful, and they always give us a
Mhm.
shout out
Mhm.
and shout out the database whenever they can on social media. So that's great. But yeah, I think sometimes it's hard for me to understand what people exactly are looking for, because
Mhm.
sometimes they'll say actor of color. I'm like, well, is this more like is this a black actor? Is this a Latino actor? Is this something where race matters? And then if they even get more specific and they're like, oh, I need a black man, I'm like, do you want Michael B. Jordan? Do you want Idris Elba type? Do you want like Will Smith type? Like what?
You've
what
checked
does that
one
mean?
box, and now we have 20 other boxes over here, right?
Yeah. And so just I think it's helpful if people can list like some of the attributes. You know, we want someone who's really quirky and funny,
Mhm.
but can still at the same time nail this dramatic scene.
Mhm.
Because then I could think like, oh, okay, like who is like that Will Smith type, right? Because
Mhm.
I see him as someone who's like quirky and funny, but can give you the heart of the scene too.
Mhm.
And then I think of like locally, I think of people like Mike Sandusky, who
Mhm.
is great and is so experienced and really understands comedic timing, but
Mhm.
also has that ability to play the honesty of
Mhm.
an emotional honesty of a scene. Versus if someone said that they wanted someone who knew more of I don't know, could play like a more of a dark dramatic role and could play a character that's really intense but
Mhm.
didn't have to worry about like comedic portrayal
Mhm.
at all, but they just wanted the intensity to be really there. Then I would think of like someone like Antoine Jackson, who's like
Mhm.
very good at like intense dramatic roles, but he also will say himself like comedy is not his comfort
Mhm.
zone. So that would be something where it would be like, which one are you looking for? Because then I could give a better
And you
recommendation.
and you know these actors,
A lot of them, yeah.
a lot
There are
of
few
them.
that there are few that just found us online
Mhm.
and just sent their resume, but most
Mhm.
of them I know. Yeah.
It sounds like you have the seeds of like a half a dozen different businesses that are going on right now. I mean, with the database, it's almost like you're an agent. A theatrical casting agent, which is like, oh, I can send you some of my talent to audition, which is an agent.
Oh yeah.
And then you're an educator with children's theater, and you're a producer, and you're a theater manager, and all these other things. But so how do you keep it straight? I mean, what do you see? How do you see yourself?
I think I compartmentalize
Mhm.
Based on the task. Like today, I am, or from like 3 to 7, I'm going to wear my producer hat and get all of these things done. From 11 to 2, I'm going to be teaching a class. Therefore, I'm an educator. Forget everything that needs to be done producer wise. Forget everything that needs to be done database wise. Any of that.
That's
I
an
get the domain.
that's an incredible discipline to have.
Yeah, it's a skill I'm still working on. I don't think
Yeah.
I've nailed it, but
Uh-huh.
I'm still
Mhm.
working on that. And then I think like organization wise, I'm looking into so many different tools to stay organized. A friend got me hooked on Google Calendar about a year ago, and I'm like, how will I survive without that?
Yeah. Well, my wife has control over the Google. Oh, well, she doesn't have control, but she has access to my Google Calendar.
Oh.
And around 10 a.m., I'll start getting notifications, and it'll just keep. I think my first video, I made the mistake of keeping my computer on during the interview, and it was right around the time, and we would just hear the bell go beep. Beep. I'm like, oh, my life is being planned for the next 5 years. But I mean, it's helpful to have somebody else plan your life. But I also use Google Calendar, and I find it really, really helpful.
Yeah, I love that it gives like the 30-minute warnings and the 10-minute warnings. Especially because, in Michigan we have to drive everywhere. So those 30-minute warnings are helpful of like, I think it's less helpful when you say like, this is at 10 versus that reminder at 9:30 that's like, you need to leave your house now. So I do love that. But I'm looking into other platforms that are great for like teams. Keep getting this thing for like Monday.com that I want to check out. That's that you can share tasks with your team so that the company can see tasks.
And there are some pretty good project management software out there, which I can recommend to you off camera.
Yes.
Because I can't think of the name on camera. But you know what? I'm going to put it right here. How about that?
Hi, this is Jeff. You know, being stuck inside during a pandemic can be a real drag, especially if you're an actor looking to improve their craft. Fortunately, I might be able to help you with that. I can help you with monologues, scene work, Chekhov, Shakespeare, improv, and much more. Private sessions start at $25. For more information, go to www.michiganchekhov.com. See you guys later.
We're talking about this need, and you're trying to fill the need, and I really, really respect that. I think I find my experience is that I've found a lot of actors tend to love to complain, but few of them actually love to solve the problem or be a part of the solution. And I really respect that you're trying to be a part of that solution. What is your vision for Michigan theater as a whole for the future? You obviously saw something that was missing. So what is it that would be like the perfect Michigan theater of the future?
I think in one word I would sum it up as variety. And I think in detail what I mean is I want to be able to go to any theater company in Michigan and look at their season, and I will be able to see that there are playwrights of color, there could be white playwrights, there could be white directors, directors of color, and then even further, ideally there would be Black playwrights, Latino playwrights, Native American playwrights. I forgot that in my list of people of color, actors of color, when you said how to define actors.
Oh, Native Americans, yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Asian American writers, Arab American writers, directors, having that variety. And then when I go and see a play, also seeing that on stage. And then if I want to dig deeper and go backstage, that I'll also see the costume designers and the stage managers, and everything will just be more diverse. And what I mean by diverse is not that we're getting rid of white people and only having people of color. I think it's that we're sharing the space equitably. So there are white people and people of color, and there are multiple people of color in the space together. And it's not just like, oh, we got our one a Black singer in this show and we're done for the season. You know what I mean? Yeah. But that it can be.
Or we've got our one Black play for the season.
Right.
And we're done. There we go. We filled that quota.
Yes.
Right.
Or it's even like a time capsule type thing of like, there's always this idea that actors of color only exist in a time capsule. Like, oh, if we're going to do a play about Black experiences, it should be set in the 1960s. Or it should be set in the,
because racism existed back then, right? Right. We don't have racism now.
And then there's so many cool, like, young writers writing stuff for today that's about what's going on today. And how do we show, I don't think it's get rid of the old plays and only do new plays. It's variety. It's do both. You can have Raised in the Sun, and you can have that in the same season that you have something by Dominique Morisseau, and you can also have those two in the same season that you have something by a local writer who no one even knows their name yet, but they have such a brilliant story that people won't listen to because they haven't been amplified or they haven't been given the platform, but their story is just as good.
Colorblind casting or color conscious casting? Or both?
Yeah, I think with variety, both. There are some things where we should be conscious about how we're casting it, and then also how do we give opportunities for actors of color who want to just be in thoroughly modern Millie. I don't want to do that personally, but if there is an actor of color who wants to do that, like I think
or Legally Blonde,
I think they should be given the opportunity to do that. And why does what I would ask artistic directors, what do you ultimately lose if Elle Woods is played by a Black woman or an Asian American woman? Like, if ultimately she's just going to be in a blonde wig anyways, and as long as they can capture that essence of, seemingly dumb on the surface, but is believable enough that they would get into Harvard, that's really what matters. That's what the character is about, and whoever can tell that story, I think, is important.
What would you say to a director who is like, Emilio, I'm with you. I totally want to cast, but I hold auditions, and no people of color come to audition for me.
I think I would say reach out to me. I can help make some recommendations. And then I would also say there's a lot of different ways in which we communicate that we can rethink. Maybe if you're looking for younger actors, maybe switch to social media instead of doing email posts or saying like, I used Encore Michigan, but nobody came. Encore Michigan is a wonderful platform, but it doesn't reach necessarily all actors of color, and it doesn't maybe appeal to people who are younger, and that's social media generation.
What's a better platform?
I think it depends. So I would say Facebook and Instagram are incredible platforms if you're looking for younger people. I would say reaching out to people who have casted actors of color in other plays and seeing if you can get contact information for actors of color who have been in other plays and emailing them directly and just being transparent and saying, I heard from this person that you were wonderful in this play. Unfortunately, I didn't get to see it, but I would love to see you audition for my play. I can't promise any casting, but I can say that I'm really excited about you coming to the audition. And I think framing it in that way lets actors know that they have a chance, because for so long, actors of color have been told, yeah, just come out. And then they see an all-white cast, and they're like, so that was a waste of my time to come. And when that spreads, that rumor spreads, or that company gets a reputation for doing that, then I think it's harder for that company to get actors of color. And I think it's going to be really hard for a company to make that start. If they are a company that's like, I'm going to switch now to having diverse casts, even though I didn't do that in the past, I think it's a wonderful thing. But just know that hopefully those companies just have patience, because it's going to take a while to build that trust, especially if people go into your website and all they see is white actors in the other productions that the company has done. Then they're going to think it's going to influence the way they think. So I think it's just about building that time. So I would say personal emails, utilizing social media, and reaching out to other theater companies who have had success with actors of color.
Well, that's great, and I really wish you were around when I was doing more casting for shows and directing more. There would be times when I was like, boy, I want to do Othello. I really want to direct Othello, and I found it so hard to get actors of color to audition for me. And now a lot of that is because of Shakespeare. What is your feeling about actors of color in Shakespeare?
I think that there are some actors who are really excited about it, and I think it's a wonderful thing for people to pursue. I know there are a lot of actors who do the traditional four-year university route, and they love Shakespeare, and they're like, I can't wait for a Shakespearean play. And also actors of color who've done like alternate certification programs instead of a BA, like acting classes, like Michigan Actors Studio or other acting studios that are really excited about it. But I would also say there is a third pool of actors of color who have like a very strong faith-based connection. And the reason why I bring up that I think is often overlooked is sometimes, as someone who grew up Catholic, reading that Bible, I'm like, oh my God, what are they saying? And it's the same thing with Shakespeare, right? That language is archaic. And so if you find people who are, really passionate about their faith and really great orators and, priests and church-oriented people who really spend a lot of their time dissecting the Bible and analyzing the Bible.
And things like that.
Yeah, exactly. Then I think that's such an easy switch to do Shakespeare, because they understand that heightened language.
That's brilliant. All right. So you're good at Shakespeare. If you're out there, you know who you are. One of the best recommendations that I got was when someone said, if you want people of color to audition for your general audition, post that you are looking for people of color to audition for your general audition. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one thing that people were upset about the Hamilton casting notice that had said that they were explicitly looking for actors of color. But I think that's kind of the best way to counteract it. And I think that more than this idea of like any ethnicity, that's something that we've perpetually seen. It goes to white people when they say any ethnicity. So I think you're absolutely right. Like reframing that, like we want to see actors of color. We want to, if you want to use the word colorblind cast this or color conscious cast this or whatever you want to use that just makes it very clear to people that it is worth their time to audition and they will be considered if they audition.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Hamilton. I thought one of the I saw a documentary on Hamilton, and one of the things they talked about was that when they first started casting, they were like, you will never find actors who can act, sing, and do hip hop who are people of color. They're not going to show up. And there's like there were so many actors who's like, I'm ready to do it. Where's my chance? And they just came out of the woodwork. They're there.
Yeah.
They're there if you have faith that they will be there.
Absolutely, and I think part of it, like with building that trust, is also like understanding that you might not get exactly who you want the first time, but you're building that relationship and you're building that network. Because I think Hamilton's a perfect example. I would argue that the first Broadway cast, don't hate me, Lynn, or anyone else, but it was
Lynn. I know you're watching.
Lynn, I know you're watching. Forgive me. Don't tag him either. But I think like that first cast was like, because they went so New York, and New York working actors, I feel like they did have a little bit of a harder time with the hip hop element because they're so used to like going into an audition and this is how we sing theater and so they were incredible actors, but a little bit of a harder time with the hip hop. But then when you hear about like the Chicago tours, and I'm seeing clips of these Chicago tours and the other tours, and I'm like, that's the right person for it. And I think they found it because the New York person opened the door and said, and inspired them and said, I can do that.
No, I can do that even better.
I can do that even better, right? And so I think that I would encourage theater companies not be afraid of that your first time you're doing a multicultural cast, you might have people in the audience say, I can do that better. And that's great, because then they will come and audition for you in the future, because now you've built that relationship and that trust of knowing that you are open to casting in a different way.
Wow. What advice would you have, if any, to Michigan filmmakers?
I would say to be as imaginative as theater people would be really exciting for film, especially in the time we're in now where there is no theater. I think what is so great about theater is that anyone can be anything. You can, I just saw Dance Nation at the Ringwald, and they were having, women in their 50s play 13-year-old girls, and we accept it in theater because it's imaginative, right?
You can't do that in film.
Yeah, you can't do that, but why can't you do that in film? Would be my question is like, can we expand what film is? And I think it's because we say, oh, well, we're reaching a broader audience, and so it has to be simple and easy for them to understand. But I think now there's going to be opportunities for film to be more imaginative and reach maybe a smaller audience, but it creates a bigger opportunity.
What's your idea of the Michigan actor? What is the Michigan actor in your mind? Because you've actually of the people that I've talked to, you've actually lived outside of Michigan, which is helpful. But what is the Michigan actor?
I think there is such a broad span, but I would say the ones who are working consistently are the ones who are working consistently, meaning that the ones who are getting gigs are always working on their craft, like always taking classes, always going out to the auditions, always doing the readings, and accepting anything to work on their skills, versus some other actors I've found are maybe not always keeping up with their skills and just sort of hoping for the role to come to them. And so I would say those are the two biggest types that I see. and they're both really talented. But I think the hardworking person is the one you see on stages more and in films more because they're always going after the gig. And some people might not even know that the other person exists because how would you find out about them if they're not auditioning, if they're not putting their stuff out there, if they're not doing readings and stuff to build up their skills?
So what I'm hearing you say, Emilio, is when this blows over, everyone needs to enroll in a class, maybe even Michigan Michael Chekhov classes, but any class really. Go out and enroll in a class. Keep yourself active. Keep yourself out there and improving your toolbox.
And are you doing these classes online now, or considering that? Maybe
I will be offering lessons online. I haven't thought of a price yet, but probably by the time this runs, I will have it up on my website. So there it is.
You can put it
I'll put it right here. Right here. This magical area. It's such a great area to put words on. Well, what's your vision for yourself for the future? What do you want? What do you want?
I'm not sure exactly. It changes from day to day, but I feel like a really cool, like, big dream, put in this pie in the sky dream could be to have a physical space that is more like a home, and that we would train actors. So the actors would live in that house, and they would like go downstairs to a living room and take their classes and get their training. But that we would specifically take in people who maybe aren't considering the 4-year BA route, or but are really passionate about acting and want to commit that time to it, and just don't have the access or the resources right now. I think that would be my pie in the sky dream, and I just need a billionaire to fund it.
Yes, yes. Fund both of our dreams, because his dream is very similar to my dream. So nice. There it is. That's great. Would you consider making your space into a greenhouse space for other theater companies too?
Oh, yeah. I guess I was imagining more like a literal house, not even a performance space.
A literal house?
Be the training. Just be for training.
So like of the real world, but with theater.
Yes. The real world for theater is my dream.
That sounds nightmarish to me. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I don't know the full logistics of it, and we'd have to think that through exactly what it would look like. But I think what I hesitate on space is that I do love going out to so many different spaces, and I feel like if we do hammer down, if Black and Brown does hammer down to one space, it would be great because people will have consistency of knowing where to go. But then I feel like who we reach then becomes smaller because.
So you like the improvisational aspect of your theater company.
Yeah.
And I, after talking with you, I can see totally that being the case for you.
Yeah. I mean, I love that we even got to go like to Toronto, and we got to go to Toledo, and I think it was because we didn't have a space. You know, we couldn't say like, oh, why don't you guys come to our space, or we'll just, no, we're fine, we're doing our own thing this season. It was like, yeah, we don't have anything going on. We'd love to travel, and that also gave our actors a chance to travel, and sometimes when we do these traveling shows, there's also like more money being involved, so we can pay actors more, and then they also often provide like the housing for the actors, so it's like we get to bond because we so often only see each other during the rehearsal time because we're so busy, or maybe we'll hang out and do a karaoke night, but when we get to have
road trips are the ties that bind.
Yes, and even being in the hotel rooms together too, and eating breakfast together in the hotel rooms. It's like, oh wow, I've never eaten breakfast with this person before, because that just never comes up.
You get to know whether they're a morning person or not,
or if they need their morning space.
That's cool. What specific projects are you doing?
So yeah, we have the Beast of the Town that we're working on, which who knows, maybe will be a cartoon now or a podcast. And then we also have a grant for a program called Our Voices. I forgot to mention that's another thing that we do. It originally started as a teen program, and now it's expanded. There's a kindergarten program going on right now that's on hold because of everything going on. And then we've also got to do it with adults, which is really fun. And then we have a grant to do it with seniors, but that's also on hold now given everything going on. But now we're rethinking of, can this be done digitally, and we just have to ask the grant funder if we can switch it to a digital thing, and it can be maybe a podcast. And but the Art Versus program, we teach anyone how to write a short play or scene, and we go like step by step, starting with editing, and then we go into how to make a strong protagonist versus antagonist, how to solidify and have a clear, tangible want and an obstacle, and using sort of Robert Cohen's GOAT method and just switching instead of an actor method, making it a playwright method. And then by the end, they have a play that professional actors from our company perform.
That's great.
Yeah, and they get to be the director too and give notes to the actors. And so now we're just thinking about, can this be done as a podcast, and how would they keep that director element? Maybe would we do multiple takes of it, or I don't know. So it's just a thought. We weren't planning on it being a podcast, but now we're thinking about that.
Well, I'm sure you'll figure it out.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Yeah. Wow. That's great. Well, my guest today has been Emilio Rodriguez. And do you have a website?
Yes. www.blackandbrowntheater.org. Make sure you spell theater R-E, not E-R.
Very good. And if you want to learn more about me and what I do, you can go to www.michiganchekhoff.com, or to my personal website, which is www.jefftamakis.com. And you can be the first to be notified of videos just like these. Once again, Emilio Rodriguez, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me.
And we'll see you guys later.